the oldest hate group in the world. It's shrouded in secrecy and mystery and ritual.
Brace yourselves. It's Mad That with Harry Robinson and Carl Riegler.
Hello and welcome to Mad That, brought to you by harboured Studios. I'm Harry Robinson.
I'm Carl Riegler.
And if you like what we're doing here, make sure to like, subscribe.
Do all that. Like, subscribe, comment. This is Series 1. In Series 2, if you've got an idea of a guest who you know, please drop it below. We will listen. We will reach out to them. So, yeah.
And we can get in touch with anyone, as we've famously proven.
I mean, he's proved, and you see the guests in this season, the people he's got. Next, what are we getting next? We're going to go for the Queen.
The Queen, the Pope.
The Pope, yeah.
King Henry VIII.
King Henry VIII.
He's coming on season 3.
That's the first 3 episodes. So what you want to see after that, comment below. And go and check our socials out. Go and check Have a Word socials out. And yeah, if you like what we're doing, tell us. We're narcissists. We like to know.
We're going to jump into the intro, which is going to be recorded immediately after we finish talking to today's guest.
Yes.
So just enjoy that. Understand that that's the context for it. And just dive right into it. Hope you enjoy.
Nice one. That was the best one.
That was so unbelievably fascinating. So I'm going to establish the context again.
Give us some context.
So today we're speaking to Chris Buckley. Chris Buckley is a former second in command of
former
the Ku Klux
Imperial
Klan.
Nighthawk.
Yeah, which we didn't know before today.
Second in command in the United States.
I know. Of the oldest hate group on the planet. I mean, if you don't know much about the Ku Klux Klan, known as the KKK. The KKK are a white supremacist hate group founded in the 1800s,
so
I think.
Long ago.
They were founded by kind of rich, wealthy, kind of Confederate, educated men, white men in the south of the US who were really kind of angry that they'd lost their slaves.
Yeah.
And that's when they kind of founded this group. It really was an attempt to kind of gain power by pushing black people who were now freemen, like free slaves, down. But also, they were classed back then as a terrorist group.
Yep.
The historians have called them America's kind of equivalent to like Al Qaeda, even though that's such a weird thing to try and put across. I mean,
it existed.
It's the most rancid kind of form of domestic terrorism.
Everyone will have heard KKK, and we've just spoken to a guy who is second in command in the entire United States. So this guy has got stories and experience, and he was so candid and honest and articulate, and just it was such a good episode.
And his story of redemption as well, and you can really tell the sincerity and his regret, I guess, from the off. Is fascinating. And like, truth be told as well, Chris was a person who, like, we've got some names in this season that we got because of the name, I guess, or that we had written down the name of the person that we went for.
Yeah, this was based on his story.
Yeah, Chris was like, but also like, it was like, he's not done loads of media.
Yeah, he
stuff.
wasn't one of our big hitters, but
name wise, but
absolutely,
this would be my favorite one as well.
Yeah.
The depth that's gone into it, but it does go to show that we're going to uncover these stories that, I don't know. This is the shit that gives me the rush. This is why.
Well, that's not the last time we speak to Chris.
Absolutely
not a chance. He was so good, and you can tell there's only so much you can get into somebody who's lived a life like Chris within an hour. Like, yeah, we could do that again and again and again, and we'd uncover new stuff. So, if you like the episode, go and have a comment. Go and find Chris online, because he's clearly doing great things. So
absolutely,
go and give him some love on his socials and stuff, because although he's done these things in the past, you'll find that he genuinely has changed, and in my opinion, is net positive.
Yeah,
I don't think I asked him the question, and his answer was interesting, but
yeah, he seems to be a man that's really trying to battle internally with himself.
Yeah,
despite the fact he's doing so much good now. It's such a strain. Everyone goes through their life trying to be net positive, I guess, and he went down a path of doing so much bad, and then is now trying to do so much good to.
Yeah, he was down here, and he's probably up here now what he does, but it's me leaves him somewhere in the middle, doesn't it?
Yeah, fascinating, and we hope you enjoy it. Mad that high five again.
Oh yeah, bash.
So, yeah, good job we spotted that. So a little question that we like to start with normally. Obviously, we've got you on for a certain reason, I guess, in terms of your story and your background and your time kind of in the Ku Klux Klan and stuff like that. Obviously, now as a reformed man. But in your own words, who is Chris Buckley?
Oh man. I'm still trying to figure that out, man. Like you guys just come right out of the gates hot, didn't you? Like going for a knockout blow right off the bat. Man. I guess to put it in the most honest terms possible, man. I'm a father, a husband. Um I'm somebody who's still at 41 years old trying to learn who I am and heal from past traumas and experiences. I'm still ashamed of my past. I'm still embarrassed of it. I have an enormous amount of love and compassion for everybody but myself. I mean, like I'm a very complex individual, man. Like I'm wow.
It's a good
It
question.
seems to have like resonated with you.
Yeah,
That
man. Like you got me thinking right off the bat. I'm somebody who wants to do good to kind of take away from all the bad that I've done, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I've got a lot of experience in life with substance abuse, with the criminal justice system, hate and extremism, but I've also had some really great experiences with love and affection and generosity, and I want to I want to replicate that. That's who I want to be, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, you want to hear people tell you who you were, you wait until you die.
yeah,
That's when you find out who you were. As far as who I am, that's a constant evolution, man. I hope I'm a good person, and I want to be a positive influence on society and the world, man. That's who I want to be. So that's who I strive for.
It's a good answer.
Absolutely,
It's a very good
Well,
answer.
You come across as someone who is obviously very sincere, and you talk about yourself in the past almost as if because you've evolved, it's a completely different persona altogether. Almost, could you kind of describe for people who maybe don't know your story, who you were almost in your past life, I guess, and your why you kind of started to think the things that you did, and where that kind of stemmed from?
Yeah, it's man, it was just a crazy story that happens to so many people. A lot of people would have said that happens to so many Americans, but it happens to so many individuals just across the globe. Um, Growing up, I had issues with some abuse that happened. A close family member, and so I had some sexual abuse that happened, a same-sex family member. Um, so from an early age, so I'd say 5, 6 years old, like these things started, and that kind of sets your attachment style and the way that you see the world and your confirmation biases growing up through life. Um, I started to experiment with drugs and alcohol and get into trouble in school, kind of as a lash out. So I was always labeled that problem child or that kid that was a little bit too much to deal with. I think, moving forward that, I joined the military at 17 uh, as a response to the 9/11 attacks. I seen those. So combat changed my view of the world, right? Like once you experience combat and you go to war, you kind of get to experience things that the average human being doesn't get to experience. You see things that I don't think any human being should ever have to see or experience. Um, I come home and, after being injured overseas, I dealt with some mental health issues, some PTSD, traumatic brain injuries. And instead of going into the VA or the mental health system, I found myself doing what, a lot of individuals do, and using substances to cope and get through. So I found myself dealing with addiction at that point as well. So I mean, you see the ingredients being sprinkled into the bowl here. You've got trauma, you've got mental health, you've got uh substance abuse, and then you just mix it up together, man. And the oven that put all that into play and baked this nice little cake of dysfunction in my life was I started to be angry at society, at the military, at everything that I had experienced in life. I was lashing out at. I was angry. I was projecting what I was coping with. I was angry at the military because of my injury. I was told that I would be medically processed, either to see if I was medically able to stay in the military. I'd broken my back. There was no way I was staying in. So I kind of felt forced out. I was angry at my comrades for being allowed to stay into the military, and continuing to move on. And here I am just stuck in a place where, like, how do I adjust? How do I form back into society? Um, I was angry at my employers because I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't, find gainful employment. So I was really struggling financially. And you know, eventually all that hate and that frustration, I met a group of people who kind of embraced it and encouraged it and nurtured it. And I found myself involved in extremism and right-wing hate groups. And I moved on into that. And over the course of like 2013 to 2016, I rose to the position of second in charge for the entire United States chapter. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of things that I experienced and did in my life that I'm just, I look back on and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was supposed to die a long time ago. And yeah, so I mean, like, just looking back, it's like I said when you guys asked me the first time, like, there's a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of, man.
Yeah.
Within the clan, was there a lot of people like you? Was a lot of ex-military? Is that something that they not prey on perhaps, but somewhere where they feel as though they can recruit much easier?
So yes and no. Um, Whenever you have the opportunity to recruit somebody into your organization, whether it's an employment or a club or an extremist hate group, we generally look at military service from anywhere in the world as a plus. One, you've got loyalty, you've got accountability, you're reliable, you're hardworking, you have good ethics and morals. So I mean, like, yeah, for sure. Anytime you come across a veteran, you're like, ooh, like I
Yeah.
could use this guy. When you look at it in terms of like extremist groups or hate groups or violent kind of groups, like, yeah, you want somebody who's comfortable with violence. You want somebody who is possessing those skill sets to be able to teach others, one, how to commit and process violence, but you also want somebody that you can rely on. So yeah, anytime we come across a veteran, myself included, when I was recruited, it was it was seen as kind of like a perk, like, hey, this guy
Yeah.
has like extra skill sets that we're not going to find in normal society, you know.
Could you talk us through how you were recruited? I guess so. You've just come back from being out in combat. How talk me through that kind of interaction and how you found out about the branch of the clan that you ended up joining, that kind of thing.
So I mean, like I said, I was struggling financially. I blamed my employers because I couldn't hold down a job. I blamed society because my wife wasn't eligible for, public assistance because they said that she made just like $10 too much. Um, to be able to qualify for just food stamps, like just help with groceries. Um, I was angry, man. And when you're in a hate group or an extremist group, one of the tools that we use for recruitment is you find me somebody that's pissed off and I can turn them into an extremist, right? Like I just need to
Yeah.
know why. Like what are you pissed off about? Um so like, I had a lot of grievances. I had a lot of things that I was pissed off about. So it was just like take your pick. Um I didn't really have accountability on myself because it was uncomfortable, right? I didn't want to think about the fact, oh, I can't hold down a job because I'm unreliable because I'm high and I don't go to work, or I can't get a good job because I can't pass a drug screen because I'm doing drugs and I'm staying high all the time. So you see what I'm saying? And it was easier for me to say, oh, I can't get a job because I'm white and we want to
Yeah.
give jobs to all the immigrants and the illegal aliens and everybody coming over that's working cheaper. Oh, my wife can't get government assistance because of the blacks and the Mexicans that are just absorbing all of the resources for themselves. And so I found a friend of mine that I used with, like we were drug users together, man. Like we would get high all the time. But his dad owned a construction business, and he seen that I was struggling, and he was like, "Hey, look, man, you're gonna come and work with me and my dad, dude. We'll be there to pick you up tomorrow. Like, do you have any tools?" And I was like, "I don't have nothing, dude. Like, I've sold everything I own for drug money."
Yeah.
Um, so they picked me up, and I'm working with them. It's not steady work. It's like I might work Monday and not work the rest of the week, and then hey, we need you on Thursday. So it was enough to be able to purchase a little bit of food for the family, but not buy groceries. So I was pissed, man. My kids were starting school. Um, During this time, I wasn't able to buy school supplies, couldn't get school clothes. Like I was really, like I wasn't at rock bottom, but I was damn near. I was knocking on his door. Um, so this person that I was working with was involved in the Klan. So over the time that we were spending together, he would, drop little hints and kind of nurture the seeds that he was planting, be like, yeah, I mean, like you're eligible, but they're not going to give it to you because you're not brown, because you don't speak Spanish. You know what I mean? Like you're here legally. You're a citizen. They don't need to own you anymore. You're not going to vote Democrat, so they're not going to take care of you. Like so like and a lot of these things mixed with like the projection of anger, the mental health, the substance abuse, like it made sense, right? I was like, yeah, I am white, and yeah, I do see a lot of people when my wife goes to the food stamp office that are not white trying to apply for food stamps. Um, I did see a lot of Mexican workers on like the construction crews and the roofing crews and stuff, and it's like shit. No wonder I can't get a job. These guys work for pennies on the dollar compared to what I'm going to work for. So I remember, we had talked and I let him know what my situation was like. I ain't got no fucking school clothes. I ain't got no school supplies. Like my kids start school in a week. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. I remember, like the morning that it was a Saturday morning. We got up and my dog was barking, and I went to the door and I opened it. And there was a big trash bag on my front door, just a big ass black trash bag tied up. I was like, what is this? And I open it and it's notebooks, it's packs of pencils, it's lunchbox, it's all these like school clothes and stuff for my son and even clothes. My daughter wasn't even in school yet. She was a year old, but there was like baby clothes for her. And like, I mean, I just sat down and I was looking through this bag and I was like, I'm bawling my eyeballs out. Like I'm crying because somebody showed compassion to my situation and was able to help me out when I wasn't able to help myself out, you know? And, I didn't know where it had come from. I didn't know who had done it. And the following week, I was telling him about this, and he's just kind of smiling. He was like, hey, white people take care of white people. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
man, like, you guys did that? You guys did that for me? He was like, yeah, me and my brothers. And I was like, man, I'd love to thank you guys. Like, what can I do to thank you? I was like, look, I'll work for free for the next couple of weeks, like to pay for this. And he was like, no, you won't. He was like, I'll tell you what you do though. If you want to thank them, we're having a get together this weekend at my house, man. You should come and meet the guys that did this for you. And that was all she wrote, man. I get there and I meet them. They're all Klan members. And I started to, hang around, get relationships built with them. And then it wasn't long. And they came to me and they was like, hey, do you want to join? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. You guys have been helping me out more than anybody ever has. Like, why would I not support the people that have been supporting me? Whether I knew it was wrong or right or not, I felt this loyalty and obligation to give back to those who had given to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't like they showed up at my front door in robes and pointy hats with pitchforks and torches and was like, you're going to join the Klan because you're white, and if you don't, we're going to kill you. It was nothing like that in this. Imagine going to a cookout or a barbecue with your friends and the environment that you're in. Everybody's laughing, they're throwing a football, they're bullshitting about politics, they're laughing, they're drinking beer. Like that's what it was like. Like there wasn't no uniforms, there wasn't no hoods and robes. It was literally people getting together and hanging out, but also racist undertones and conversations happening.
Mhm. Like just kind of passed around loosely in conversation. They'll use slurs and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
talking about why the Jews are responsible for the crash in Hollywood and the stock market, and how like the banking systems are all run by Jews, and how they're responsible for injecting the pornographic and the transgender ideology into our schools and our children, and all of this stuff, you know what I mean? And you know, there was a lot of drugs floating around too, man. Like if you wanted to be high, you could be high for free. And like everybody had something, like whatever you wanted, it was there. So I mean, like it was paradise for an addict. You know what I mean? Like you were literally living in a utopia.
Yeah. What year is this, if you don't mind me asking?
2013. Well,
20,
it was early 2013. I want to say late 2012 is when I started to like hang out with the guys. 2013, I actually discharged from the military in March. By the end of March, I was full patched in member. I
wow.
something inside of my mind was like, I can't join this hate group while I still wear a military uniform for the United States.
Yeah,
Like I
What
just
what
couldn't
was
I couldn't allow myself to do that.
I get that.
what was the block there though? To like in your brain, why did that conflict so much?
It was an ethical and moral block. A lot of the guys that I served with in the military were non-white,
Mhm.
and some of my best friends were not white guys, So I mean,
Yeah.
I just had this ethical conflict, this kind of like, yeah, these guys are different though. Like these guys aren't the average not white guy, right? These guys are veterans, they're military, they're like me. Like there's principles and priorities above themselves, just like me.
Mhm.
Um, that I couldn't label onto like citizens. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I get
happens?
you.
What happens to those relationships though? So as your time moves forward within these groups, how do the relationships with the people who are non-white in your life? What happens to them?
So as far as the military personnel, the comrades that I served with, there's an old song called "The Army Goes Rolling Along," right? I know you guys are familiar with it, and the army keeps rolling along. Well,
Hmm.
so that big machine of the army does keep rolling along, and it takes everybody with it, unless you're not with it. Then you're just kind of like parked as the army rolls along. So naturally, you kind of lose contact with those comrades, and the time in between calls get farther and farther apart. Eventually,
Yeah.
they just stop. Um, so I mean, those guys naturally just kind of fell out of my relationship circle. As far as for people in my circle, um, I started to alienate them. I started to other and shun them. Like if they were gay, if they were interracially involved in like, you know, black white relationships, Hispanic white relationships. Uh, I didn't have anybody in my friends group that wasn't white, Christian, and nationalist in that order, right? Like most people say God and most people say God and country. Mine was race, God, and country.
Wow.
You talked about kind of becoming like a kind of fully patched up member and that kind of stuff. Do you remember the first time that you did the kind of ceremonial and stereotypical kind of pointed hood vibe of the clan?
Yeah. Yeah, that was insane, man. It blew my mind. One of the things that really, like, once I started this process of being recruited, like that really drew me to it was the mystery that surrounds it, right? Like when you look at like the cultish, like it's the oldest hate group in the world, like
Yeah,
the oldest hate group in the world, and it's shrouded in secrecy and mystery and ritual, right? And so part of the appeal was like I get to know these secrets. I get to learn these mysteries and this mystique around it. Um Almost so much as like you compare it to Freemasonry, right? Like it's that kind of like allure, like what do they know? What are they hiding? What secrets do they keep? And you realize that it's just there's nothing. There is no fucking secrets, right? It's just a bunch of fucking hillbillies out in the woods wearing fucking ghost costumes, lighting crosses on fire, screaming white power, right? Um, it's not like Freemasonry at all. I've known some Freemasons, and you know, I've kind of gotten away from joining cultist groups.
yeah,
It seemed to not work real well for me the first time. Uh, you know, but yeah, so I mean, it was interesting, man. Like to be there, to be in a robe, to be doing something that had been done for hundreds of years before me. I don't know, man. It was like there was this deep internal feeling that like I was doing something forbidden or I was doing something morally wrong. But on the other hand of it, like it was very attractive. Like, hey, I'm a part of a
yeah.
very small group of people that have come before me. Like I'm different than everybody else. And then there was the sense of purpose that like really instills into you like I'm fighting for the white race. I'm fighting for white prosperity and white, you know, progressiveness.
What's a day to day? So obviously you've got the ceremonial things where you go and, as you say, just burn crosses
Yeah.
with some hillbillies. What is the day to day role of somebody within the clan? Like what were your duties?
Oh man. I don't know. So look, it's pretty damn accurate. I can describe it this way. Do you guys have watched the Chappelle show before, right? Dave
Yeah,
Chappelle?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So there's an episode on
I've
there,
seen the sketch. Yeah,
Clayton.
it's a very very
Yeah,
famous sketch.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's the fucking day to
the
day life of
Clayton
a
Biggins
clan.
one.
yeah, yeah.
That's it, dude. But yeah, it's literally that. It is that.
So it's
Um
just a social club with some extra, I don't know, regalia.
Yeah, so I like to think of it as it's a social club with extra steps, right? Uh
Yeah, yeah.
it's you just add in like the racism and the hatred against everybody that doesn't look like you. And even if somebody leaves the social club, well now it's not because they called out your bullshit and they realized that you were wrong. It's because they're a Jew. Like if a white guy leaves, like
Right,
you can't call him a black guy. You can't be like, oh, it's because he. No, but it's really easy to be like, oh, we found out he was a Jew, so we got rid of him,
right.
right?
Okay.
Or he was a federal employee, or we found out he was gay behind the scenes. He was doing gay stuff. Like it's never the group's fault that somebody leaves. It's always the
Mm.
members' fault that they had to leave, right? Like,
Yeah.
So you said you got to second in charge, which is, I think we're correct in saying it's Imperial Nighthawk. Was that your
yep,
what?
yeah, that was
What did
it.
you have to do to get to that rank? Because that's clearly very high up within the clan.
So it's not as hard as you think, guys. You just have to fucking show up. It's kind of like graduating high school now. Just show the fuck up. Come to meetings. Like it's not like you have to like have all this knowledge and this skill set. I got into the security tract of the movement because of my military experience. So I was good with a firearm. I was good with tactical movements. I was good with, teaching people to communicate with each other over a walkie-talkie, like very basic stuff. Like, hey, if you're going over here, tell somebody you're going over there on this big fucking black thing that has a button. Okay. Like this is like here, you can't shoot to save your life. You're flagging everybody with your goddamn barrel. Like, let me show you how to be safe with a firearm. And they were like, oh my God, this guy's a military genius. And really I wasn't. Like I wasn't. I just you know what I mean? Like they're like a goddamn guy's gonna be president someday, and it's like they're just so enamored by the dumbest shit, It's like, hey, I could shoot 100 meters and hit a fucking pizza box. And it's like, why can't you guys do that? And it's like, oh, you've been trained for it. And I was like, to use sights on a gun? I've been trained for that? Like, my dad taught me that when I was 6, But yeah, so I mean, so I got into the security field and then, like, I just showed up. And like, whenever there was a meeting, I'd be like, yeah, what white power. And they were like, oh, he's so loyal to the cause. And like, really, I was just kind of showing up to get high, man. I didn't like gays. I didn't like gays because I was molested as a kid, and that was like a deep-seated hatred. And because of my time overseas in Afghanistan, I didn't like Muslims.
Yeah.
So everything else was really like, I didn't really give a shit about. It was like this salad buffet of extremist hate groups and ideas that you just kind of take what you need as you move down the line. Be like, oh, yep, I don't like the gays. Let me have a little bit of that Muslim hate. And then, I think this is all I'm going to have today. But everybody else is just like getting their $3 worth at the buffet. Be like, Jews, Catholics, Christian, Muslims, gays.
Yeah.
Everybody, man. And so I just kind of like went along to go along. After a while, it just becomes a habit. And one, it was really comfortable for me to be around people who allowed me to project that hate openly and didn't try to tell me how wrong I was. They encouraged it. It was welcome. The old saying, the birds of a feather flock together. Right? And that's why. One, I was open to be hateful and as racist as I wanted. 2, there was all the free drugs I could handle. 3, there was a lot of sex, right? With like the female members of the group. It was like rock and roll with racism, dude. Like literally, like the music, like who wouldn't like take out the racism and you ask anybody that's under 30 and be like, hey, listen, we're gonna give you the life of a rock star right now, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Do you want it or no? They're gonna be like, think I do want some of that. So, but then you get there and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, the Jews are bad, black people are bad, anybody that's not white Christian or like you and believe in the United States of America is bad. And it's like, whatever, bro. And you go right back to doing what you're doing. So I mean, yeah, but there are like there's a lot of people in these groups that are just fucking angry, man, and nobody's ever taken the time to just say, hey, man, what happened? Like, talk to me. I give a fuck.
Yeah.
I care. Yeah. And you notice, like, there's a really great documentary out by Dia Khan called Meeting the Enemy, right? And Dia is a Middle Eastern woman who makes a documentary, and she goes and meets members of the NSM, the National Socialist, the Nazis, the neo-Nazis. And and her big question to them is like, what have I done? Like, why do you hate me? And none of them can really fucking answer it because like now we're face to face with this person, and it's like, oh well, it's not you, it's everybody else that but it's not you specifically. Like you're cool, but everybody else. And after that documentary, like a lot of members left the movement because of Dia specifically, meeting Dia. And then there's another guy out there who does this work, Daryl Davis. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Daryl.
I'm familiar.
Daryl is a black man. He's a musician, and he goes and meets Klan members where they are, and he befriends them in a very honest and genuine way. He's like, hey, like, I'm not your enemy. I love you. Like, what can I do to help you in your life to like, prosper and grow and be okay? And Daryl's had several members give him their clan robes and be like, I'm done with this shit, man. Like,
Mhm.
so I think that there's a lot of wisdom and value in what people like Daryl and Dia and you know I don't like to put myself into that category, but they're definitely role models. They're somebody that I aspire to be like. So I mean, like we could learn a lot from them as a society on how to deal with extremism and hatred. That is a symptom of a problem, man. Like we don't see somebody go to the hospital and be like, my arm's bent to the left, and they'll be like, oh well, we're gonna give you pain pills. They're like, oh, the arm being bent to the left at a flat spot, like that's because the arm is broken. So let's fix
Yeah.
the arm and use the and that's what we do with extremism. We see it; it's really uncomfortable, and rather than embrace it and be like, no, come here, you're hurting. What do you need? How do we help? How do we build a support network around you and get you back to a healthy place so that you can reintegrate into society? We want to say, oh, the bad racists, they're wrong, attack them, call them out, and all they're doing is throwing kindle on the fire. They're throwing gasoline on it, because now those extremists take the blowback from these do-gooders in society who I really do feel like they want to help. They just don't want to help. They want to be like, it's virtue signaling on like the next level. Be like, oh, they're racist. And now we see what's happened, whereas like, even if I don't agree with you,
Mhm.
it's not that I'm racist, but you're going to call me racist. You're going to call me a bigot. You're going to call me a homophobe. You're going to call me a white supremacist. And we've gotten really comfortable at just like opering those words, like you're a white supremacist and you're a white supremacist and everyone's a white supremacist. And it's not true, man. Like, we've desensitized what real extremism is to suit people who are so soft and like uncomfortable with their own person that they can't handle somebody not agreeing with them. But rather than reply with a civilized conversation and say, this is my view, this is why I don't agree with you, they want to say, oh, you're a bigot, oh, you're a racist, because that's an easy cop out. We don't have to talk to you no more. We don't have to stand on our business,
Mhm.
right? So, but society doesn't want to do that. Society, like, there are groups out there that want to do that, but society as a whole just wants to push them aside, not deal with them, other than kick them out of the group, and that's because it's easy. The
Yeah.
hard stuff is to say, okay, what is the cause of this symptom? Let's not deal with the symptoms. Let's treat the cause.
Do you feel that? So I mentioned it before we started properly that I spent some time out in the US. I did some filming with a Hebrew Israelite hate group, and in that I spoke to the kind of Southern Poverty Law Center and delved in the kind of details of how many hate groups there are in the US and stuff like that. And a lot of them are kind of, I guess, furthered on almost by the First Amendment and how free they are to speak that hatred without much pushback. Obviously, we have freedom of speech in the UK, but we don't have an amendment that means that that isn't as rigid, I guess, as that. Do you feel that the First Amendment
So hold on.
and that rigidity kind of helps foster that almost?
So to respond to that, like, you guys have freedom of speech in the UK. Didn't I just read a newspaper article like a while back where a lady was arrested for speaking out against the government? Like, they put her in jail for it. That's not freedom of speech.
Twitter.
That's a
I
lack.
think. I think Twitter or X. I think the internet has maybe
Well, a Twitter, yeah, or a X now is like there was huge race riots kind of about
a few months ago.
about kind of immigrants and
Immigration.
asylum seekers here in the UK, and a lot of people were
Yeah.
getting arrested due to their contribution to that on Twitter and kind of spreading false information. And then that has been
so-
spread by
so-
the news as well to be like, oh, well, it's because they've talked against the government, when really it's been like helping to foster rioting.
Yeah, it wasn't just
It's-
anti-government; it was pro-hate, and
Yeah.
they are two different things.
Yeah, so and that's where like I would have to say that freedom of speech is not freedom of speech. She's not free to say whatever she wants without
Yeah.
repercussion or so you guys have tolerated speech, not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech means I can go out and be like, we should kill all the Jews and burn them in a pit, and any government member that's a Jew needs to be shot and burnt too, and there's nothing that can be done. That's absolute freedom, right?
That's
you guys have
wild to
tolerated
me.
That
That is
that
so
seems
so alien to us. If I did that outside,
right.
I would be in a
Because
jail
you guys
cell in
have
10
never
minutes.
had it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be. I
because you
think
guys
that's
have
the
never
good
had
thing,
it.
though. If Carl were to get arrested, if he was
Yeah, if I were to do that, good. I shouldn't have the freedom to be able to offend anybody I like within the public and safe
I
space.
disagree with you. I disagree with you 100%. What you're exhibiting right now is called Stockholm syndrome, right? Stockholm syndrome is where the person who's being oppressed starts to identify and support their oppressor. You should be allowed to say whatever you want to whoever you want, whether they be in an elected position of power that you give them power. Now they're allowed to tell you what you can and can't say, because if they deem it as inflammatory or inciting hate speech, like they're just going to throw you in jail. You're not free. You're given the illusion of freedom with stipulations. So,
I think there's a grey area there, though, because I think there's a difference between
I
maybe slagging
definitely
off a
do.
politician and saying the N word
Yeah, I could say fuck this politician and their views,
and be fine.
and then that can fly. But if I go outside and there's a group of people who don't look like me, and I specifically target them with hate speech, that isn't okay. They are two different ends of the spectrum.
So it doesn't say freedom of non-hate speech in our Constitution. It says
Yeah.
freedom of speech. Speech is speech. Like, you have the right to say whatever you want. And as a veteran, as somebody who works very, very intricately in the counter-violent extremism field now in the United States to deal with extremists, to deal with hate groups, and to help them back into the sphere of positive, upstanding membership into society, like that, those like our constitutional rights in the US, like we will die for them. And I'm an absolutist, right? I don't believe, like it says in our Constitution, you have the right to keep and bear arms, and those arms shall be suitable for combat. The government has a fucking M1 Abrams tank. I should be allowed to park one in my driveway if I can afford it, right? We're not going to say you can have a gun, but you can only have this many bullets for it, and that's infringement.
That kind of answers my question in terms of, because you have a constitution which is a rigid document that you follow by the letter, whereas we have a kind of liquid constitution made up of many laws which end up kind of changing. It's why I think it differs so much across the Atlantic, which my question was kind of like, do you feel that that as a byproduct of that, do you think that fosters hate groups in the US more so than anywhere else, because there is statistically more hate groups in the US
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, at one time, right? Like, let's just go back in history a little bit and reframe this in a different light, right? That maybe nobody had looked at. At one time, the colonists were considered a hate group by the king, right? But because we adopted the right to be able to, we're going to say what we want, and if you don't like it, we're going to shoot you, right? That's why I think that, one, America was successful, because really we're still an experiment. Like, we're only 200 and some years old. We're still an experiment in like what democracy and government looks like, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it's also our double-edged sword. It's also our biggest strength, is also our biggest weakness, right? Because we allow people to manipulate and attack each other under the guise of free speech. But as soon as you start to impose any kind of sanction on that, you're on this slippery slope where it's like, but it's constitutionally protected, and in order to have an amendment made, you're going to start a war. Like, there is at least half of the country that's going to stand up and be up in arms over trying to change freedom of speech, right? And I don't think that freedom of speech is a bad thing, right? Freedom of speech gives us a very unique ability to see into the minds and hearts of what the people using. So look, but like you said, we could say fuck this politician, but I can't use a racial slur to describe a group of people. Freedom of speech, anybody who hears speech that they agree with is going to be okay with it, right? But when you say something that people don't agree with and they try to censor that or shut it down as hate speech or this speech, that's when it's kind of like a problem, right? If people only said things that everybody likes to hear, we would never have the conversation about free speech. Right? It's not about what you enjoy hearing. It's about somebody having the right to say something you disagree with, and you also having the right to not pay attention to it, ignore it, or respond to it. Right? And I think that when we use freedom of speech as a tool rather than something that we're uncomfortable with and say, I want to hear that, it should be illegal to hear racial slurs. It should be illegal to say somebody should shoot that motherfucker in the head, right? It should be illegal to say that. But we get a unique perspective as to why. Hey, ho, this person's struggling. Hey, come here, man. Why'd you say that? What's going on with you? Oh, man, really? Oh, you're struggling. You have no education. You're working a dead-end job. You're upset at the resources that people are giving to you. You see immigrants coming into your country by the millions and choking out your resources as an actual citizen. I get that. What do we need to do to change that for you? How do we put you in a place where you're thriving, where you're taken care of, where you're getting the education you need and the job progression that you need? So we can use this as a unique insight as to what people are thinking and feeling. And when we try to shut down what people are thinking and feeling, we have to look at it. If I throw the N-word out, it's out of anger. It's out of hatred. What is it that this person has against this group of people that's causing them to hurt, that's causing them to suffer? Because we got to remember, man, hurt people hurt people. You don't see anybody, look, nobody come into this hate group and ideology on a winning streak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody come in suffering, hurt, broken, needing something, looking for something, and society ignored that. Oh, they're just a fucking drug addict. Just let them OD on the street, one less we got to take care of. But the problem is nobody's taking care of them now. When you see people out there who can't afford to buy groceries but are working as hard as they can, it's like, well, they should just get a better job. They should go to school. They should get a degree and go and find a better job rather than say, okay, we're sending billions of fucking dollars to the Ukraine, to Israel, to Lebanon. Like, but our own people are suffering here in the United States. Our own people are 50% or more under the poverty level. Look at any major city. You have Chicago, New York, DC, Portland, Seattle, like any major city. And it's like, what the fuck? This is post-apocalyptic. People sleeping and shitting on the sidewalks right in front of you, right? But, they need money over there. Let's send your tax dollars over there to them rather than there's a problem. So people are angry. And rather than like shut down what they're saying, like, let's listen to it. And that's my ideas on free speech. Yeah, free speech sucks when you hear shit that you don't like.
Honestly, I find the issue fascinating. I also find your outlook really fascinating in terms of it's one in terms of being able to spot kind of the traumas that people are going through because they're free to say heinous stuff.
Yeah,
it's such an interesting outlook that I guess is true as well. Because if you think of how many
nobody happy says this.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody happy does these things. They've all got problems.
Right. That's what I said. Nobody shows up into these groups on a winning streak, man. It's like, nobody shows up and they're like, hey, man, I make $70,000 a year. I'm working as a lawyer and I'm married to a beautiful woman. I got 2 healthy kids. I drive a Lexus. I hate black people. Like, nobody says that.
Doesn't happen. Yeah.
Nobody says that.
You're still clearly quite a passionate man. So you left the Klan 8 years ago, is that correct? 2016?
Yeah, 2016, right at the end of 2016.
Where do you divert your energy and passion now? What does it go into? Because
So
How
now
how
I
you take
work
all
with
that energy you had and move it?
Yeah, so I started with working in the field of counter extremism, working with individuals and their families who were involved in hate groups, who were in white supremacy, who were involved in jihadi Islamists, who were involved in eco-terrorism, environmentalists, and things like that, Antifa, and just providing a peer mentorship to help them get out of that, find out what they need. And I kind of I created a system. Like I created a whole methodology on how to address these people, how to work with them, how to figure out what they need and get to the root cause of the injury and not treat the symptoms. So I started working with people. I helped them get off drugs. Once they were off drugs, well, now they can pass drug tests. Now we can get them working. Now we can get their credit repaired. Now we can get them, hey, let's enroll in some college programs. Let's get you some college courses going. And you work with them over the course of a year or two, man, and then they come back and they're a success story. They're like, hey man, I just got that great job, bro. Hey, this is my girlfriend, blah blah blah. And you see her, they introduce their girlfriend to you and she's Indian, or you know what I mean. It's like, wow, you've come a long way. And you start to realize that hate and extremism is just a symptom of something else, right? It's like the
Yeah.
cough to the virus.
Yeah.
Right. So it's easy to pay attention to somebody coughing. Imagine like, your significant other, they're sick because you can hear them coughing all over the house, but you can't see the virus. Right. And that's what hate is. It's a virus. And what we can do as society is provide an antivirus to the hate. And that's what I do now. I spent a long period of time till 2018, 2019 doing that work. And I've been certified as a peer support specialist in mental health, certified peer recovery specialist in addiction, forensic peer mentor to work with people coming out of the incarceral system, justice impacted individuals that are like, hey, I'm a convicted felon now. How do I get a job? How do I fix my life? And, so I've addressed Congress twice on matters of hate and
Well,
extremism and how they can best approach these situations and create programs to help individuals. And now I'm we did a documentary about my story called Refuge with a great friend of mine, Dr. Haval Kelly. He was a Syrian Muslim refugee out of the Middle East there. He came 9 days after 9/11, and
wow.
so I try to use my past as a blueprint for others who are where I was. And
Yeah.
because who better than me? Just like when you have somebody who goes back into substance abuse counseling that was an addict, who better than them? They know the struggles, they know what you're going through, they know how to navigate it, they know what the drugs do, they know how it feels. Like we're the ones to pull people out. And so that's what I've dedicated the rest of my life to is that passion of I'm going to pull people out, man. Like I'm going to get them out, give them back to their families, give them back to their communities as healthy, productive members. And now I'm in
Absolutely.
school for my bachelor's in psychology and addictive diseases.
Wow.
Fantastic. One thing I do want to kind of ask, because you mentioned kind of Dr. Kelly there, and I want to make sure we tell the whole of your story, because we've covered the kind of bad, and I want to kind of demonstrate how bad things got and how someone like you was able to come out of it, I guess. So you mentioned right at the start about that you've done a lot of stuff you regret. I mean, I've seen a video of you with your son in like full regalia, saying Sieg Heil and doing salutes. Yeah. Could you maybe give us some of the things that really stand out that you do regret, if you're comfortable? And then go on to talk about how you ended up leaving the Klan with the help of kind of Dr. Kelly in terms of meeting him and being acquainted with him and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that really comes to mind is, I look at my son now, he's 13. He was 4 in that video. I look at him now and I see just how beautiful and just innocent of a soul he is. And one of the things that are at the top of my huge, very extensive list of regrets and embarrassments is that I was allowing my hate to be inherited by him. he hadn't been tainted by society. He hadn't had any of the issues that I had faced or the experiences that I had, but indiscriminately I was injecting it into him. And I look back at how disgusting that was, man, and just I really regret that. And I'm glad that he's still as resilient as he was, and it never ceded, and now he's just an amazing young man. The other thing that really stands out to me about what I'd done was the amount of people, both directly and indirectly, that I harmed. Um,
Is that kind of
by
physically
being
or by verbally abusing them or?
by vicariously, emotionally, mentally, physically, just harm in general. You imagine somebody who's older who sees you guys out there in front of a courthouse protesting in your uniforms and might have had to experience that with their parents when they were children. On the not so nice end of it, the not just a protest side of it. Like they were harming their families. They were actively hunting them down and harming them. Um, think about like how that must have affected them, like just the trauma that it must have opened up, and how I was a part of keeping society from healing, right? Like we look back on that period in American history, and it was probably one of the darkest periods that we've ever had. And because of my involvement in that group, I became responsible for that. And that's a heavy burden to bear. And a lot of people out there will be like, "Oh man, this guy's a fucking piece of shit. He should go kill himself for fucking being a part of that." That would be the best option. And they're allowed to say that. It's okay for them to say that. They're entitled to their feelings. They're allowed to have them. And one of the things that I've learned is that when somebody tells you that you've harmed them, you don't have the right to tell them you didn't.
Yeah. Has there been anyone in particular that's come up and said to you, I guess, that you've harmed them, or have you?
Look,
You know what I
man,
mean?
like people are angry, but for the most part, man, like people hear my story and they hear the transformation and like what I do now,
Absolutely.
um, and they're really supportive. Like I've been to a friend of mine in Pennsylvania, Leon Ford. Uh, I love Leon. Leon's an amazing individual. He was shot and paralyzed by a white officer, uh, and it was a case of mistaken identity. So Leon is now an activist in the community, and he's also like has friends that are involved in the BLM movement, right? The Black Lives Matter movement. So he put me in touch with one of his friends, and his friend invited me to come and speak. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. I'll do anything to help you guys out. I get there. He didn't tell me I was going to a BLM meeting. So now you can imagine a former white supremacist is speaking at a BLM meeting and didn't realize it until he got there. And when he told everybody Chris is a former Klansman, the room got dead silent. Like even the crickets shut the fuck up, right? And so, I heard one person say, "Don't let that fucker talk, kill him." And he was like, "Whoa, hold on. You got to hear his story." And so I tell my story, I tell what I do now. And, that same person that said that I should be killed came up and hugged me afterwards and was like, "Thank you for what you're doing." And, so, I mean, as far as people like lashing out at me and saying bad things about me, you're never going to be able to please everybody. Somebody's always going to be angry and upset at what you're doing. I look at it this way. I'm doing good for my community and for society now. So anybody who doesn't like what I'm doing, fuck them. I don't give a shit, right? Like I could care less. I don't know who they are, and them being upset or talking bad about me is not going to encourage me to know who they are, right? I focus on what I can do, who I can help, and the things that I can achieve, and that's where my focus lies.
At the start, you said basically, for what you've done in the past, you're now trying to make up for it going forward. Do you not think you're in net positive now?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Uh, it at first it became about trying to make up for it, and now the outlook I have on it is like we've dealt with racism and hatred in this country since it started. Uh, and every single generation has been like, that one's kind of hard. I'm gonna punt that one to the next generation, right? And I want to at least start the process. I don't want to kick this off to my kids and my grandkids or your kid. Like we can start. We might not solve it, but we can at least start the process and create kind of a blueprint of like, hey, this works, this doesn't work. Like, and I don't want to leave it for my kids and your kids' generation to start from scratch. Like we've done that for so long, and it's like I have to start. I have to figure something out. Like somebody has to say we can do this and at least start the process.
Absolutely.
And another one. So you said, my question is, what do you do for self-love? So you seem to have a lot of regrets and things about your past. What do you do currently now? What do you do in your life to love yourself? Because, yeah, that's important.
Oh man, so I had to give up all the drugs and alcohol, man. So I don't get to go have a beer or nothing anymore. Um, man, I nature's really important to me. Um,
Okay.
not like environmentalism type of nature, but like just being present in nature. Um, going for hikes, enjoying like that clean air when you're out in the woods. I'm an avid hunter. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love hiking. I love kayaking. I love anything that has to do with me getting back to the basics and grounding myself in my spirituality, right? And I've learned that we're all interconnected. And I really like I've come up with this idea that we're all experiencing the same life from different perspectives, whether we're a tree or a human being or a fish or a bird. It's the same life. It's the same energy. We're all just getting to experience it from a different perspective. Um, and so when I focus on that and I practice that, I learn to be more compassionate with myself. I learn to be more compassionate with others, and I learn to be more compassionate and caring about my surroundings and where I'm at in life.
Absolutely. Well, honestly, Chris, like to speak to you, I'm not sure if you need me to say it, but to speak to you now, you can tell that there's a hell of a lot of sincerity there.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can tell that, especially when I've seen kind of clips of the past you, and the stark difference between that and you now, even if I'm not sure if you see it as almost a different person, it feels like a different person. Do you know what I mean? It feels like it wasn't the person that I was watching for research before we spoke.
Yeah, we believe you. We believe
absolutely.
that you are the new you. There's no falseness there. You clearly are making a change.
Yeah, so I want to point out that you said that it's clearly not you in the video, the you you're talking, because that wasn't me. That was the embodiment of my suffering, right? That was me putting on the outside everything I was experiencing on the inside. That was my fear. That was my trauma. That was my pain, right? And it took a lot, like meeting Dr. Kelly. Arno Michaelis was the first person that I had met when my wife decided that it was time for me to leave. And like she gave me the ultimatum: you're either out of the movement and you're getting sober, or I'm taking the kids and leaving. And so she reached out to Arno Michaelis, who's in the video, Refuge, who's in the movie.
Yeah.
And he kind of walked me through that process. And after seeing what he was doing with me when I got better and I got healthy, there was no question. Like, this is my calling. This is what I have to do now. Right? I have to keep what I have by giving it away to anybody who needs it or wants it.
Yeah. Was he the person? Who was the person that put you in touch with Dr. Kelly?
That was Arno Michaelis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a former neo-Nazi and white power metal band lead singer, and he was his story's out there too, man. He's been doing this for the better part of a decade, and I was really the first person that he had tried to reach out to and get out of the movement and get out of the ideology. And his first try was his first success, and he's been doing amazing work ever since. And we worked together, like me, Arno, Dr. Kelly, Pardeep Kalika. Like we all work in this group called Serve to Unite, where we serve others to unite our community.
Do you reckon 2013 Chris could ever imagine having a best friend as a Syrian refugee and I don't know where you are now?
Oh man, he'd respond with fear and anger and call him a race traitor, call him a Jew, call him a homosexual, or whatever he could to discredit this Chris. He would dig into his canned speeches of hate and response and just kind of regurgitate the rehearsed responses.
Well, honestly, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for being so honest and candid about some clearly personal and
absolutely
insane things in your life.
And I'm a person who has been very privileged to do journalism and kind of interview loads of people, and I can tell you that there's very few people that have enthralled me and kind of really
I could keep going,
fascinated me
for another hour. This
as much as you. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, if you guys ever want to do a part 2 or a follow up, man, reach out and we could do a follow up to this. That would be fine. Yeah, man, like my advice to any of your listeners is it's really hard to embrace the individual that is exhibiting these behaviors. That's the hard answer. That's the uncomfortable thing that is so necessary. I'm not telling you to run around and find racists and try to hug them, but I'm just asking people to look beyond the behavior that they put on the surface and understand that these individuals are suffering. They're not doing this because they're in a good place in life. And if we really want to combat hate and extremism, the way to do that is with love. Love's the only thing that will trump hate.
Absolutely. I think it's the best words to end on.
Message to end. Yeah, couldn't have been better. Thank you.
Honestly, Chris, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And man,
you guys have a great weekend, and holler back if you ever want to chat again, guys.
Absolutely.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Take care, Chris.
Yep, not a problem.
That was the best one.
That was so unbelievable.